If we found aliens tomorrow, confirmed, verified, undeniable proof of extraterrestrial intelligence, what would we actually do? This isn't a movie. This isn't a hypothetical. What is the actual plan? Because there is one. Kind of. In 1989, a diplomat sat down and wrote a document. 9 principles. A step-by-step guide for what humanity should do if we ever make confirmed contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. It was adopted by an international body of space scientists, endorsed by 6 global scientific organizations, and recognized by the United Nations. And it has absolutely no legal force whatsoever. Anyone can ignore it at any time with 0 consequences. Other than that, you might make some space nerds mad. But it exists. And I think that the fact that it exists, what it says, what it contains, and what it doesn't, is one of the most fascinating things I've come across in a while. So let's talk about it. That's what our video is about today. Bureaucracy and aliens. I promise you it's interesting. It's very interesting. Please subscribe. Michael McCaud, the man who wrote the Declaration. I want to spend a minute or two on him because he's actually really interesting. And his background matters a lot for why this document was written. McCaud spent 32 years as a U.S. Foreign Service officer. He's not a scientist. He's not an astronomer. He's not some UFO nutcase. He's a diplomat, and a respected one at that. But the detail that matters most for understanding why he wrote this document is what he was doing in the decade before it. In 1978, he was one of the people who initiated the US-Soviet anti-satellite arms control talks. So think about what that means. Sitting across the table from Soviet officials during the height of the Cold War, trying to agree on rules for weapons that didn't even fully exist yet, for a domain of conflict that had never even been governed before. Getting 2 superpowers, the strongest in the world at that time, ones that fundamentally distrusted each other at every turn, to just agree to something, to sign their names to something. This is not a guy who just thought aliens were cool. This is someone whose entire career was built around getting nation states, often adversarial ones, to just agree on things, to come to a common ground. So when McCaud looked at the SETI community, scientists scanning the sky with no plan for what happens if they actually find something, he didn't see a philosophical problem. He saw a negotiation that just hadn't happened yet. A table that nobody had set. And McCaud had spent his entire career setting tables just like this. SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, had been an active field of scientific research since the late 1950s. Researchers used radio telescopes to scan the sky for signals that couldn't have been produced naturally. Patterns, frequencies, mathematical structures. Things that would indicate something out there is deliberately transmitting something or building something large enough that they just could not be ignored. No confirmed detection has ever been made. I want to make that clear. There have been false alarms, sure. Interference from a microwave oven was enough to put these people into a frenzy. But the field was serious. The technology was improving. And the question of what to do if they actually found something hadn't been formally answered. Yet. McCaud looked at that gap and thought, somebody needs to write this down now. Because if we wait until after, then it's going to be way too late to agree on anything. So in 1989, he sat down and wrote the Declaration of Principles concerning activities following the detection of extraterrestrial intelligence. Okay, it's a mouthful, I know. It took me a couple takes to even get that. So we're just going to refer to it as the Declaration of Principles for the rest of the video. It was adopted by the International Academy of Astronautics, a body recognized by the United Nations, and endorsed by 5 other major international scientific organizations. It contains 9 principles. But before I go into them, you need to keep one thing in mind. One thing that colors, as I mentioned, this document has no legal force whatsoever. Any person, any organization, any government can just ignore it with no legal consequences. Ultimately, it's a gentleman's agreement among scientists. It works entirely on the honor system. All right, so principle 1, make sure you're not wrong. Pretty simple, but really important. You don't want to go out and say like, oh, aliens are coming to kill us and eat us. Well, at least not until you know for sure, fact checked, that's what's happening. That's not the ideal way to lose your job, right? The most plausible explanation for the evidence is the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence, rather than some other natural or anthropogenic phenomenon. So before you tell anyone, before you make any sort of public announcement, make absolutely positively sure that what you found is actual evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence. Don't embarrass yourself. This sounds obvious. You're all smart. You know not to rely solely on your own observations and findings, but the history of science is bloodied with announcements that turned out to be wrong. Take pulsars, for example, the rapidly rotating core of a dead star. When they were first discovered in 1967, they were nicknamed LGM-1. Now, LGM stand for Little Green Men. So what? We got the Great Gazoo over here? No, I don't think so. The principle notes that if you can't confirm it's extraterrestrial, you can still publish your findings. Just frame it as an unknown phenomenon, rather than confirmed contact. Which is the scientific equivalent of saying, well, I don't know what it is. I'm not going to say it was aliens, but something happened. Principle 2. Tell your colleagues first. Nobody else. All right, you've done your checks. You're pretty sure this is a real, genuine, bona fide alien. So what now? So you need to notify every other SETI researcher in the network and have them point their big old telescopic devices over at your little patch of sky and tell you exactly what they see. I don't know. Why am I doing that voice? I don't know. Sorry. All right. So you're not going to go to the press, right? No posting on social media. No tweeting about it. You're not going to Snapchat your ex. You don't tell anyone outside of that small little scientific community. Well, at least not until you have independent confirmation from multiple observatories in multiple countries. At this point, Principle 2 says that you should inform your relevant national authorities, which may get some of you wondering, who is your relevant national authority on extraterrestrial contact? Is there a department somewhere? Is there a form you need to fill out? Is there some guy sitting at a desk whose whole job is to just wait for that phone call? Spoiler, there's not. But we're going to get into that, okay? All right, now it's time for Principle 3. Tell everyone. Once you have confirmation, real, independent, multi-site confirmation, you go wide. You notify the International Astronomical Union. You notify the Secretary General of the United Nations. You notify the International Telecommunication Union, the Committee on Space Research, the International Astronautical Federation, the International Academy of Astronautics, the International Institute of Space Law, and 2 specific commissions of major scientific bodies. That's a lot, I know. McCall sat down in 1989 and he wrote out this list, and he thought, yes, these people, all of these people need to know before the public does. There is one small detail added to this principle that I find pretty charming. Whoever found the signal, whoever discovered it, the person, the institution, they get the honor of actually making the first public press release. They get to tell the world that we found aliens. Okay, so the next couple of principles are essentially variations of the same theme. So I'm just going to group them all together. Principles 4, 5, and 6 are to be transparent about everything. Share all of your data. Share it openly. Share it with the scientific community. And preserve it permanently. Record everything. Store it in a form that can be analyzed for years, for decades to come. The emphasis on openness is really just a preemptive measure. Think of the scenario where a government tries to sit on the information, to classify, to control it, to use it for political advantage, or just keep it hidden for whatever greater good they think will come from it. That's not fair, right? By making total transparency a core principle, by writing it into the documentation before anything else has even happened, they're trying to make the secrecy pretty much impossible. Now, whether this would actually work is, again, a completely different question. Principle 7, protect the frequency. Okay, so this next one is pretty technical. Let's say the signal is electromagnetic, a radio transmission. Parties involved in the declaration should do their best to protect it. This could be from interference, or from somebody accidentally or deliberately jamming the signal before it can be properly studied. This principle has a few steps, like notifying the International Telecommunication Union, and even potentially having an emergency radio conference. Okay, so why do we think they would have written this down? Well, let's say, hypothetically, some government wanted to jam the signal for strategic reasons. Only for the good of the people, of course. Principle 8, do not reply. This is the one that really stops everything. No response to a signal or other evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence should be sent until appropriate international consultations have taken place. That's it. Whatever we've received, however clear it is, however friendly it seems.
Okay, we'll set the scene then. That's what you want to let Earth know?
Yeah. They don't know our language. That's the alien? This is nothing! This is nothing!
You've reached the voicemail of...
It's not a voicemail, we're
please.
setting the fucking pro!
No, if you've never seen those, it's like what people used to leave as their voicemails in the early 2000s. They'd play a song and be like, hey, you just reached me? Sorry, I'm jamming out
Trying
right
to
now.
send a message to Earth.
Yeah.
We're not sending them a voicemail.
It was an accident. It was a misinput on my burgle dog.
My little burgle dog is...
My little pecker.
Okay, cutscene. Restart. Okay. Every time we talk about penis, we restart.
Nope, not responding. Nobody gets to respond until the entire world is consulted on what we have to say. A reply from Earth is a reply from all of us, every human being alive. So we have a clause for this. The procedures for such consultations will be the subject of a separate agreement, declaration, or arrangement. Basically, we don't say or do anything until we consult that second declaration. Right. But there is no second declaration. It was never written. I want you to think about that for a second. Go on. I'll wait. Take your time. The most important part of this entire protocol, the one that governs the single most consequential decision that humanity might ever make, punts it to a follow-up document. A follow-up document, mind you, that doesn't exist. But we're going to get back to that. Principle 9 is to set up a committee. Once a detection is confirmed, an international committee of scientists and experts from around the world should be assembled to oversee the analysis of evidence and advise on the release of information to the public. There's also a clause in there that instructs SETI to keep an active list of all people willing to serve on that said committee. So if something happens, they're not just scrambling to figure out who to call. So right now, somewhere in the world, there is a list of people, a roster of humans who have agreed in advance to be part of the committee that decides what message we send to the stars. I think about that part a lot, probably more than I reasonably should. Who's on it? What are they going to agree on? What will they disagree on? And what will we say? Before we get into what the Declaration is missing, I want to show you something. All right, look what I got. I got the whiteboard out. That's how you know I am the real deal. I'm a real YouTuber. Okay, so anyway, here's a timeline. Starts off in 1972. 1972. NASA was preparing to launch Pioneer 10, a probe designed specifically to study Jupiter and then fly off into interstellar space, becoming the first man-made object to actually leave the solar system. Eric Burgess, a science writer, realized what that meant. If Pioneer 10 was going to drift through the galaxy indefinitely, maybe it should carry a message. He brought the idea to Carl Sagan. Sagan loved it. He brought it to NASA. NASA said yes, immediately, at every level of the hierarchy. But they told him that he only had 3 weeks to prepare it. 3 weeks. 3 weeks to design humanity's first physical message to the universe. Sagan and Frank Drake handled the scientific diagrams. A pulsar map to locate Earth. A diagram of the hydrogen atom as a universal unit of measurement. Sagan's wife, Linda, drew the artwork. 2 human figures, a man and a woman. This didn't have any global consultation. There wasn't a vote. It was just a group of people in a room who decided that this is what humanity looks like to whoever finds it. When the design was put into American newspapers, it was actually a little controversial. Some newspapers decided to censor the man's cock and balls, and others did it with the woman's nipples. So we were sending these nudes into space, but we couldn't even show them back here at home. Pioneer 11 followed in 1973 with an identical plaque. Both are currently somewhere in interstellar space. In 1974, humanity beamed the Arecibo message out into deep space. It was sent out into the universe, aimed at a star cluster named Messier 13. It was only about 0.2 kilobytes in size, but it contained information about our solar system, our DNA, our mathematics, and what a human being looks like. What you're seeing on the screen right now is the message in its entirety. A little pixel art drawing that we made for aliens. It was transmitted only once. Again, the rest of humanity was never consulted. Nobody voted. A group of scientists just pointed a telescope out into space and said on behalf of all of us, hello. That being said, this was more of a showcase of humanity's technological achievement rather than an actual attempt of communicating with aliens. Any configuration of bits outside of the one I already showed you would have been completely indecipherable. Not a great strategy for finding new origins of life, right? Okay, so in 1977, 2 things happened. First, the really big one, NASA launched the 2 Voyager probes. Attached to each one was a golden record, a 12-inch gold-plated copper disc containing 116 images. These were natural sounds from Earth, greetings in 55 languages, 90 minutes of music from dozens of cultures, and an hour of a woman's brainwaves compressed into just 1 minute. That woman was named Anne Drian. She was the project's creative developer. 2 days before she recorded her brainwaves, her and Carl Sagan had confessed their love for each other over the phone. She later stated that she had spent the entire hour just thinking of him. That recording is currently drifting through interstellar space. In about 40,000 years, Voyager 1 will pass within 1.8 light years of another star. It also includes a message from President Jimmy Carter. This is a present from a small, distant world. A token of our sounds, our science, our images, our music. our thoughts, and our feelings. We are attempting to survive our time so that we may live into yours. It was the sole decision of a small committee at Cornell University. They purposefully left out war, crime, disease, poverty to try to paint the most flattering version of us. The second big thing that happened in 1977 was the WOW signal. On August 15th, coincidentally, less than a day before Elvis Presley died, Ohio State's Big Ear radio telescope picked up something really, really crazy.
Hello.
Hello?
You can't be fucking Ringo.
Why? It's like in pixels. This is all B-roll.
This is all B-roll. Got this. Oh, that was the real alien right there.
Hey, who was that fucking guy?
Wait, why are we called aliens if we're the real ones?
Oh, that's deep. Humans be like, dude, what if we're the real aliens? We crashed here on a ship thousands of years ago. Oh, hell no, son.
Also,
you are not the aliens, bro.
Also, Mormons were right.
Yep. Here in the Andromeda Galaxy, we're all LDS, bro. All of us.
We were born that way.
Even the non-Mormons. Yep.
And we have gay aliens, too.
Actually, it's normal for us.
Yeah, that's just nature taking course.
Yeah. Everyone else, cisgender.
What
those
is
are
that?
And the Scientologists were right, by the way. And the Mormons
And
at the
Mormons.
same time.
I met
Yep.
God and she's black.
We have...
It was a powerful narrow-band radio signal, lasting exactly 72 seconds, coming from the direction of the Sagittarius constellation. It was even more precise than that, though. It came in at 1,420 megahertz, the frequency of neutral hydrogen, the most common element in the universe. The one frequency any spacefaring nation would know to tune to. SETI researchers had theorized for years that this was the most likely channel for an intentional transmission. The signal fit the profile of extraterrestrial contact almost perfectly. Astronomer Jerry Emin was reviewing the data printout a few days later when he spotted it. He circled it in red ink and wrote one word in the margin. Wow. Scientists from all over the world pointed every telescope they had at that specific patch of sky. They listened for years on end, but no signal like that ever came again. They had no explanation for it, natural or otherwise. So they never replied. So in the same year that we launched humanity's most ambitious greeting to the rest of the universe, we might have gotten the closest thing we've ever had to a response. And there was no protocol for that. Okay, 1989. Oh, fuck. All right, 1989. McCall writes the Declaration. 17 years after the Pioneer plaques, 15 years after Arecibo, 12 years after the Golden Record and the WOW signal. There's something that happened recently that I'm sure a lot of you already know about. On May 8th, 2026, the United States Department of War put a website up. It's called war.gov/UFO. On it, you can find over 160 declassified files, military reports, pilot accounts, witness interviews, photographs, and videos, all related to what the government is calling unidentified anomalous phenomenon, UAPs, or what we would refer to as UFOs. They've been doing this for years now, calling these things UAPs, but now the files are out. They call these the Pursue files, standing for Presidential Unsealing and Reporting System for UAP Encounters. The Department of War, the FBI, NASA, the Director of National Intelligence, they all put out statements. Pete Hegseth called it unprecedented transparency. Kash Patel said the American people now have unfettered access to what the government knows. But there was no advanced international consultation, no notifying of the UN Secretary General, no coordination with the scientific bodies named in the declaration. No standby committee assembled. They just threw up a glitchy website and had a press release. Now, to be fair, the files don't actually have any confirmed evidence of extraterrestrial contact, or even aliens for that matter. It's still pretty open. Officials were very clear in saying that. These are unresolved cases, unexplained sightings. Ultimately, just reports that could not be definitively identified. No confirmed detection. But still, these are crazy. I almost had a mental breakdown the day that these were released. It feels like a prank, right? It doesn't feel real, but still, like right there, the press release, everything, it is real. All of these files are directly from the Department of War. Okay, but go back to principle 1. The declaration doesn't just apply to confirmed contact. It applies to the moment you think you might have detected something. Principle 2 calls for informing the international scientific community before any public announcement. Principles 4, 5, and 6, all that emphasis on openness and scientific channels, exists specifically to prevent one government from controlling the narrative single-handedly. What actually happened was the American public was invited to check out a website and make up their own minds.
He could only have gotten that idea from Benjamin Netanyahu.
Okay, now's the time to get into the real gaps. First, let's talk about the second protocol. Think back to Principle 8. No reply without international consultation. And those consultations would be governed by a companion document, a second protocol, that would answer the harder question. Not just, what do we do when we detect a signal, but what do we say back? And who gets to decide? But that document was never written. And to their credit, McCod and the SETI community put a lot of effort into it. They really tried at this, but it fell apart. The reason it fell apart is still a big debate to this day. Some researchers believe that staying silent in and of itself is a decision. That could even be the right one, but it's probably not. Honestly, it's probably the wrong one. Others believe that actively transmitting a reply could be reckless. We have no idea what could be out there. Without that knowledge, announcing ourselves more loudly is honestly pretty naive. It could be dangerous. But there's no consensus. So there's no second protocol. So the thing that the entire document is about, the question that it's trying to answer, what do we say back, is left up in the air, which is interesting, given that we've already said quite a lot. Now, let's get into the legal problem. This document has no teeth. Anyone, anytime, anywhere can just decide not to follow it with no legal consequences. I mentioned this at the beginning, but I want to be more precise about it, more specific. So a SETI researcher finds a signal, and as protocol, he tells his government about it. They can decide to just go out and tell the world immediately. Or alternatively, they just sit on it and never let anybody know. A billionaire could go out and broadcast their own message to the stars without even informing anyone else about it. There's no legal mechanism to prevent this. The United States could handle first contact on their own terms. The declaration could do nothing to stop them. Ultimately, it's just a handshake agreement. It only works because the people who have signed it agree to uphold it. If somebody decides to go against it or go around it, there's nothing to fall back on. This document was written in 1989. A lot of things in the world have happened since then. Namely, the internet, social media, the 24-hour news cycle. These are all problems they couldn't have even fathomed at the time. The original assumption was that a detection would be orderly. Scientists would have time to verify, consult, coordinate, and then announce in a controlled way. The public would learn about it through official channels, with context, with scientific consensus already established. But what happens when somebody posts a blurry screenshot onto X, the Everything app, at 2 a.m. And by morning, everybody is screaming about aliens. The world goes into a frenzy, looting, fires, etc. You know the works. Not a good time. Okay, the next cat. This one I keep thinking about. I keep turning it over in my head. Principle 8 says no reply without global consultation. But who gets to be part of that consultation? Every government, every person? How do you even organize that? How long is it even going to be before somebody can just send the message? There's this philosopher named Chelsea Haramia. She's been working on what might be the hardest version of this question. Not just who speaks for humanity now, but how do you get consent from people who haven't even been born yet? Because if we send this reply today, we're making a decision on behalf of every human being who will ever live after us. They don't exist yet. They can't vote. They can't object. They have no voice in any consultation we could ever run. But whatever we say, or don't say, will be said on their behalf too. Permanently, irreversibly. There's no real answer to this. Haramia is working on it, but so far, no solution. It's a hard question. And I think that's the question that the whole document is circling on, without ever being able to quite land on it. Every one of those 9 principles is trying to say, it's too big for one person. It's too big for one country. It's too big for one moment in history. And they're right. It probably is. The problem is that too big to decide alone and impossible to decide together might be the same thing. So, in 2022, more than 30 years after the Declaration, a computer scientist at the University of St. Andrews decided that maybe it just wasn't good enough. So he built something called the SETI Post-Detection Hub. It's a research center. He brings in linguists, lawyers, psychologists, philosophers, AI researchers, all with the goal to think about what happens after a confirmed detection. Not if, after. Assuming that it's a question of when. They're running scenarios. A signal from 1,000 light years away might be jarring, but manageable. Something like an ancient artifact. A signal from just a couple light years away, though, that's a completely different story. That means that something is actively, currently trying to convene with us. It means complete pandemonium. The hub is also developing some security protocols for its SETI researchers and their observatories. Because a big concern is a confirmed detection would make certain scientists or telescopes targets for governments that want to control the information, or for groups that don't want it confirmed at all. It's a scary thought, really. It's upsetting that people would want to do this, but at least they have the measures in place. Which brings me to something that's actually happening this October. From the 5th to the 9th, the 77th International Astronomical Congress is taking place in Antalya, Turkey, which is the biggest annual gathering of the global space community. Government agencies, researchers, industry leaders, all gathered in one place. And this year, the SETI community is expected to vote on the largest update to the Declaration of Principles in 37 years. This update's going to cover things that the original document couldn't have even fathomed. What to do when a detection leaks on social media before scientists can confirm it. Security protocols for researchers who might become targets. Guidelines for using AI to help decode a signal. And a permanent committee. Scientists, ethicists, lawyers, communications professionals whose whole job would be managing the aftermath of a confirmed detection. It's going to be the most serious attempt ever to patch all of those holes we've been talking about. But whether it's actually going to work is a whole other question. The document's still not going to have any legal binding, it's still going to be a gentleman's agreement. And it's going to be racing to catch up with a world that's been making unilateral decisions about this since 1972. But at least they're trying. There's going to be 90 scientists from 14 countries all sitting in a conference room in Turkey this October, just trying to decide what humanity does next. The Declaration of Principles is a thorough and thoughtful document. The emphasis on transparency, on not letting any sole entity control the information, on slowing down and taking time to think before we make a decision that we can't take back. The people who wrote it were looking towards the future, looking at all the possible ways that this could go wrong. But ultimately, it's imperfect. You can't chalk up the fate, the words, the thoughts of all of humanity onto a single page, into 9 points. McCall himself, the man who wrote it, said years later that we can't just assume that the SETI process is immune to the ancient motivations of egoism, power, and greed. That decisions affecting the entire human species might be made by small, unrepresentative groups acting in their own interest. Even the man who wrote the plan saw the flaws with it. It wasn't enough, because how could it be? I think that what the Declaration truly embodies isn't a plan. It's more of an aspiration. A document that was written by people who understood wholeheartedly how bad this could go. And they tried their best to build something that, if everyone just cooperated, if nobody got greedy, if the internet hadn't existed yet, might have just given them enough time to make a good decision. Alright guys, that's it for me. The Department of War is still doing a rolling release on the Pursue files. There's going to be more. I don't know what's on it. I don't know when they're coming, but we do know that more are coming. So I guess we'll just have to sit and wait to see what we learn. I do want to thank everyone who's made it this far through the video. I've been wanting to do an alien video for a while now. I am kind of obsessed with space and aliens. Oh, also, my last video, the homunculus video, it did so well. It did way better than I could have ever imagined. So I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for watching my videos. I love making these, and I love when people get to see all of the work that I put into them. Okay, but really, that's it for me. If you know anything more about the 2026 update, the Pursue files, or have actually read the Declaration of Principles, please let me know in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe. Again, truly, thank you. Okay, bye.